Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful KAFFE Facet quilt. Now this is a quilt that I saw at the Houston Quilt Festival, and I got to hear KAFFE make a talk about all his fabrics, and so this is the one that I saw there that has a lot of really bold prints and batiks mixed. So we have a lot of these prints in stock now. So we're going to go down to the retail store and we're going to grab all these fabrics and see if we can make this quilt. I've picked out a group of fabrics from our KAFFE Facet section here in the store, and I've got them laid out on the table. These are all big, bold prints. Some have some flowers, but we have a lot of geometric style prints. And I'm going to pair those with KAFFE's newest selection, which is batiks. So these are batiks, and he specifically designed these to go with his printed fabrics. So they have a lot of the same colors, but they still have big, bold geometric patterns. This one is really fun. So I think I'm going to need 20 different fabrics. So we're going to take these over to the workroom, pick out the exact ones we want, and then get started cutting. I've picked out all the fabrics we're going to use, and I've made a sketch and figured out that I need 10 that are kind of light and 10 that are kind of dark. Now with the KAFFE Facet prints, it's a little bit hard to designate them light and dark, but it doesn't really matter for this pattern. So I've just picked the lighter ones. So these are my 10 lighter ones here, and then these are my 10 darker ones there. And I don't want a real strong division between the lights and darks. I want them to mix a little bit because we're only going to get a little bit of a secondary pattern with our darks and lights. So I need to cut off about a ½ yard of each of these fabrics, iron it up, and then I'll show you how to cut it. I've got my ½ yards cut off the bolt, so I have 20 ½ yards here. Next step is to iron each one of these nice and flat. It's real important to iron your fabrics really, really flat before you cut them. Your cuts will be much more accurate if you do that. Let me show you how I like to cut this. I have 4 of the fabrics, so I'm going to be cutting 8 layers. If you're not comfortable cutting that many layers, that's fine. Just put as many down as you like to cut. Now I'm lining these up on my cutting board. I'm using that 2-inch line there, and I'm going to make sure all of these are beyond that line all the way up. Then I'm using this line here, and I want to make sure that they are all well below this line right here. I'm just going to cut it into 8-inch squares. So I like to use the weight to hold the ruler down. So I'm lining up on the 2-inch line here. I'm going to put the weight down because it will help me hold it in place. Use a really sharp blade. And we are going to cut 8 inches twice this way. Now you want to leave your cut strips right there. And we are going to twist the board around. So I'm going to want to cut here. And that's going to be my scrap piece, but I need to get 2 8 inches right here. So I'm just going to make sure I can get enough. So I'm going to make my first cut right here. And I'm going to do an 8-inch and an 8-inch. Then I'm going to do a 4-inch because we're going to have some leftovers and we're going to use that for something else. So I have the cuts done we need for the quilt. So we only need 6 blocks. So we need these right here for the quilt we're doing. All the rest of this is scrap. I'm going to leave it right there and move the ones for the quilt out of the way. Now I'm going to take these scrap pieces and cut them into 4-inch squares, and it's much easier to cut them now because they haven't moved and I can get really accurate cuts. I can cut this one both ways, and I can make one more cut down here. That's why we needed that line to begin with. And we'll have a bunch of nice, accurate 4-inch squares that we can use for another project, or we could make a patchwork border if we like. So now I'm just going to cut these the other way, and they'll all be into 4-inch squares once I get that guy done. So these are all extra pieces, and I just find it's much easier to cut them to an exact size right now. These are the pieces for the quilt, and we're just going to sort them. So put all of the like ones together. Then we will grab all the rest of the fabrics and cut them all exactly the same way. It's a really easy quilt to cut out. I've matched up all of my squares. I've got the dark ones on the top and the light ones on the bottom. And there's not that much difference between the lights and the darks, but these up here are slightly darker. So these two fabrics are going to go together. We're going to make half square triangles with these. These two fabrics are going to go together. We're going to make half square triangles with those. So all we need to do is take the light ones, and we're going to draw a diagonal line on the back side from corner to corner. I like to use a pencil on the back of here. There's a lot of fun marking tools, but basically we just want to draw all the way down here. And this square is so big that even if I have a line drawn on my sewing machine, I can't see the bottom of it. So I really have to draw on these squares. All we have to do is take the dark on the bottom, the light on the top, line them up. Now we're going to stitch 1/4 inch away all the way down this side, and then we're going to stitch 1/4 inch away from the line on the other side. So I like to string piece them, so I've got all of this color lined up. So I'm just going to grab the next piece and do these all in a row. Now leave the pieces stitched together. We're just going to spin this around. Now we're just going to come down the other side. We're going to stitch right down the line on this side. So this method is called chain piecing. It's a little bit faster, and it also eliminates having a lot of thread tails, so you end up having to trim off less of those pesky threads. Now we will trim the blocks apart, and I like to iron them, iron those seam lines, and then we are going to take our rotary blade and we're going to cut right along the drawn line. I like to just give these a really quick press. You can even do a couple at a time, because sometimes when you're stitching it might stretch this fabric a little. And I like to have it nice and flat before I go to the next step. And this just takes almost no time. I'm going to cut along that drawn line. So basically we're just putting our ruler from corner to corner and cutting. If I'm doing smaller triangles, a lot of times I will just use my scissors, but this is such a long cut that this seems to go faster than picking up the scissors each time. From those 6 blocks, we now have 12 half square triangles. And I like to put the light side down because I'm going to open this up and then I'm going to press those seam allowances towards the dark side. So I like to smooth it open first with my hands and then press it. I like to trim these dog ears off of the blocks. And to do that quickly, I put them in a stack, take that bottom one, and just trim it and just leave it there. Flip the next one down. You can tell you don't have anything behind you there. You want to be careful, of course, you don't cut into another block, but this way it goes really, really fast. And if you miss one, it's not that big a deal. I have a lot of my customers say, you know, I don't even trim those dog ears off. So it's a matter of preference. The quilt will lay flatter if you trim these off. Now you can just pick up the stack and shake it, and any of those loose dog ears will fall out. Now they're surprisingly difficult to get off here sometimes, but if you have a microfiber cloth, they will just stick to it and your cutting board will be as clean as a whistle. This set is done. I'm going to stitch all the rest of the blocks into the half square triangles. Then we will lay them out into the big quilt and see what it looks like. I've got the blocks stitched together and I have half the quilt laid out, and it's already putting a big smile on my face. This is so much fun. So you can see the dark sections and the light sections, even though there's not a lot of contrast between the two. So right here, This is 1/4 of the quilt. So I'm gonna make 2 sections exactly like this because this quarter will fit over at the far end. And then right here, this is also 1/4 of the quilt. So I'm gonna make 2 of these, and then when we spin it around, it will fit in the other far corner. And when we're all done, we will have a big diamond, bigger and bigger concentric diamonds, and it'll make that really nice secondary pattern, which we love to see. They're gonna be really easy to stitch together because there's no seams to match within there. You just have to do the corners. So I'll get it stitched up and then we'll see what it looks like. This is by far one of the happiest quilts that we have made. It just puts a big smile on my face. The prints are bold, and you can see the secondary pattern because we have darker ones, lighter ones, darker ones, lighter ones, even though they're mixed just a little bit. We will have the layout for this available as a free download because I don't know if you noticed, but this block here is in this row, but then it's also up in this row here. So the whole effect of the quilt is really, really balanced. This whole quarter is exactly the same as that whole quarter. So it makes it stitch up really easy because you don't have to look at a lot of different blocks. We quilted it in kind of an open pattern. You can't really see the quilting because there's so much going on with the fabrics, and I love to put a big bold print on the back side of my KAFFE Fasset quilts. This one is really fun. It's nice and large. We've got about 70 by 84 inches, and there's an equal number of every block. So buying the fabrics and cutting them out, it's really, really fast. Really cheerful. This makes a great quilt for if you have any kind of teenager that you're making a quilt as a gift for. The KAFFE Fasset ones are just perfect. They appeal to people of all ages, but they seem to really be drawn to the teen group. Thanks for watching our video tutorial today on the KAFFE Fasset triangle quilt. Happy quilting!